All right, let's take a look at what has happened here with Bitcoin. It has been a while since my last video, I think over 5 days. And I just want to say that I will get back into a more consistent or at least a more frequent schedule pretty soon. It's the summertime. Price action tends to be pretty boring, at least for the most part. There are periods where we get some exciting price action, but, the last few weeks here have been pretty boring. So I kind of just outlined my higher time frame levels, and I've just been waiting for them to get hit. I have been doing a little bit of trading in between, like I did take some trades after we hit this key level down here, but I've also been doing a lot of things that do not involve the charts. I've been taking a bit of a break, but pretty soon here we're going to be heading into the fall, and that is usually when things start picking back up again. So yeah, we'll get back onto a more frequent upload schedule. But anyways, in this one, I want to go over what has happened with Bitcoin. I want to take a look at my higher time frame ideas, see if they're still relevant, see if I maybe need to adjust any of them, and we'll just kind of do a recap of what I'm looking at here with the Bitcoin price, because I think we're still at a pretty important decision point. We're still trading right below a very important level, considering what price has done back here and taking out the low of the range. So we have hit one of my higher time frame levels. I deleted the position, but I was looking at this level, which I have marked out multi-cycle value area high. I pulled a fixed range from the first all-time high in 2021 over to current price, and I'm looking at that as a massive range. And the last time I checked, this was the value area high. Maybe for good practice, I should pull that again and make sure it's still accurate. And it does appear like it is. At least it's pretty accurate. Maybe it moved up slightly, so, I can adjust that. But yeah, I do think that is a pretty important level. We broke above the value area high of this massive macro range, and we are trying to hold it as support right now. Even if we did fall below it multiple times, this was like barely a break below it. This was like a complete wick below it, and we took out the last time that we got below it. So it looks like we are trying to hold support here just with the wicks, with the buying interest. And so that is why I am looking at that as a significant level. And we did get a move down to there, and there were confirmations on this low. Starting on this 3-hour time frame, we had divergences from here to here. As we got to move down to that area, we saw divergences on pretty much every time frame lower than it. Here on the 2-hour, we saw local divergences, so this one was from a different point. Rather than it being from here to here, we saw a div from this low to this low, a more local div. Not with money flow, though, only momentum. But on the 1-hour, we saw the divergences, both regional and local, and we also saw regional and local money flow divs. So this 1-hour was given some nice signals. Pretty much everything on the oscillator was putting in higher lows as price came down to put in this lower low. So there were definitely high time frame confirmations, and there were lower time frame confirmations that could have gotten me into a trade down there. However, I did not take that trade, and I can't remember what the exact reason was because I was here at the charts while this was going on, and I did see a local setup, but I just did not like it. I wanted to wait for something better. But unfortunately, I was not able to get along until all the way up here, which that one only ended up being a decent trade. I locked in some profits up around here, and then I got stopped out. And I did take a few more scalp trades along the way. But yeah, unfortunately, I was not able to get into a long from this point down here, which, I'm not always worried about. Sometimes I've noticed that you can get much better trade opportunities in terms of risk reward if you, wait a little bit, if you're patient. But also, sometimes jumping on the trade setups at these key levels is the best option because, well, I would probably still be in a long right now if I, took partial profits, put my stop loss to entry. This trade would still be open. So, there's a give and a take to trying to get into trades at these exact levels rather than, waiting for the best setup after hitting these key levels. And yeah, in this case, I guess I chose wrong because I, haven't really had many great trades following this low. It's really just been, some decent scalps. So that is really the only significant update that I have. Other than that, we still have not hit any of these other key levels, these ideas that I had laid out. We did come very close to this idea up here. We actually front ran this high once again. So I was looking at this high over here. We front ran it on this wick. We front ran it again on this wick. So this idea is still valid. We came very close to it, and I think I even like this idea a little bit more now that we have a local high to SFP rather than looking at some old highs. That's sometimes not as useful as looking for a local context to trade. In this case, we could form some sort of a local range here. So I do like the fact that we front ran it again, and I am still interested in looking for confirmations above this high, taking out the liquidity above it, and potentially even running into the value area low, rejecting from that area. That is still a valid idea. And while I was editing this, I realized that I do need to add something to this. I'm keeping track of so many fixed range pulls at the moment, so I forgot to update this one. But yeah, I took this fixed range pull again, and you can see that the value area low, this very important value area low, probably the most important volume area that I'm looking at the moment, has moved a little bit. So it is actually no longer above this high, so you can't really look for an SFP into that area. I still think this is a decent idea on its own, just taking out the liquidity, especially if we have this local context to trade. But things are, definitely slightly different now that the value area low has moved down. I still think that, I wouldn't really consider the value area low reclaimed until we can break above this range. So that's kind of my new line in the sand, considering it's still pretty close to the value area low. And, we still could come up SFP this high and then come back down and lose the value area low once again. But yeah, I figured that was an important thing to point out, that the value area low did change. And this other short idea is definitely still valid as well if we take out the actual range high with some bearish confirmations. But, I do want to be clear, I have to see some pretty significant bearish confirmations here because this value area low, which is the value area low of this, kind of mid-time frame range that we're trading in since all-time high, is a very significant point because, as I've said in my last few videos, I think if we can reclaim the value area low, then, that opens the door to start rotating to areas like the point of control, maybe even the value area high. We did take out the range low already, so looking for a rotation to the upside makes sense, and I think the value area low is the thing that is kind of gatekeeping us at the moment. So my short ideas are still basically the same. Now, what about long ideas? I think I do still like these daily levels down here. I don't think I'm going to change this idea. However, because we got this wick below this key level right here, and we came pretty close to this daily level. I mean, it's not super close, but that is an SFP-able distance, I would say, just based off of, the size of the moves that we're getting within this range. I mean, we saw a pretty large wick up here. I'm sure that's going to be approximately the same size. Yeah, about 1.7%. So we certainly could SFP the range low into this daily level. So because of that, I think what I would prefer to see from this would be an SFP. So I would probably change this idea a bit. And I think for higher confidence in this idea, I would want to see not only a reaction from the daily level, but then the low of the range reclaimed. So I think I will modify that idea a little bit, and maybe this can turn into more of a swing trade, at least a swing range trade, rather than just looking for the reaction. Doesn't mean we're going to get an SFP this low. We could kind of start breaking our way down through this range, and maybe we just bounce off this level. Maybe it's just a temporary bounce. So, in that case, you could either try and trade the reaction if there's divergences or some kind of confirmation, or you can wait and see, are we going to start closing significant candles back in the range? And I think this idea pretty much stays the same down here. In order to get to there, we'd have to lose the range bearishly. So, yeah, I mean, if there's confirmations there could be a reaction trade. Maybe it does end up bringing us back into this area, but I think I'm less confident in that one doing it. Whereas this one, because it's so close to the range low, I think that is very possible. So that is basically the update to my higher time frame plans, or my mid time frame plans, whatever you want to call them. Now let's do some top down. Starting on the weekly time frame, we are getting pretty close to a potential green dot on this weekly time frame. The white part of the momentum wave is closing in on itself. Looks like it's pretty close to clipping off. The VWAP is getting very close to crossing the zero line. Once this crosses over, we will get this green dot. We have 3 days until this weekly candle closes. So we could potentially see this green dot print within the next few days if we start getting some more bullish price action, and maybe this can confirm by the time next week starts. And zooming out on the weekly, just to kind of get a look at the bigger picture again, I still think the weekly does not look terrible. I mean, we still see the direction with money flow. It is still pretty thick in the green after this direction to the upside. It hasn't really began to fall off a cliff here. It has potentially put in a slight lower high here, but overall it's still maintaining itself pretty high above the zero line. The weekly money flow still looks pretty strong. And I still think weekly momentum looks pretty strong as well. I mean, we still see direction. We could potentially be making another higher low here. We still have higher highs above the zero line, and we did not see any top signals on the weekly time frame with momentum or money flow as we put in this high. So although things recently have seemed to take a little bit of a turn to the downside, I think looking at the bigger picture, the weekly time frame still looks relatively strong. Now, the daily time frame is looking very interesting right now. So, yeah, I mean, I've gone over this many times, but we have had divergences on the lows. We saw divergences on this low, and then again as we took out that low with another wick. Money flow was not diverging, at least on the second one. We did have a slight divergence here, but it put in a lower low at this point, which was sketching me out a little bit. But we have recovered. Momentum has started pushing to the upside. Money flow is now trying to cross into the green. It's worked its way up towards the zero line, and it is now pushing its way into the green. So, yeah, that is very interesting. It looks like this money flow crossed above the zero line yesterday. And at this point, I mean, momentum is looking pretty strong as well. It has also crossed to the upside. The VWAP right now looks like it's right about here. So, it got a sharp move up. Now it's kind of flattening out. But it seems like, with how momentum and money flow look right now, we probably have some more room to push to the upside. That's what the daily time frame is telling me right now. And taking a look at the 4 hour, looks like, we have some decent signs of strength here. We have some direction pushing to the upside with higher lows on the low end. I guess more locally, we have higher highs with momentum. We haven't gotten above this wave back here, but also money flow on the high end is putting in higher highs. So, I mean, we are seeing a bit of continued direction. That direction is definitely pointing to the upside. Not the strongest direction ever, but, it is something to go along with the daily time frame. The 3 hour looks basically the same, and we are seeing a pretty aggressive move with money flow at the moment. So that is another decent sign. 2 hour, I'd say, looks relatively strong as well. We did get some momentum divergences from this high to where we're at right now. Momentum has put in a lower high, but it was not a divergence with momentum. And, what I say, a divergence with momentum, but not money flow, typically means retracement rather than reversal. And, well, we did retrace following that first div. We are, right now retracing again. So potentially, we're just retracing to make a higher low, given the fact that the money flow is still looking pretty strong. But the 1 hour does tell a slightly different story. We do have a slight money flow div on this 1 hour from that same spot from this high back here to where we're at right now. However, we don't have the momentum divs to go along with it. So that is like the opposite of the 2 hour. And, in this situation, I think I'd say, well, I'm going to prioritize the higher time frames. I think the 2 hour through the 4 hour, for the most part, agree. And, it's a very insignificant money flow div on the 1 hour, and it's not a div with momentum. So, that's maybe a slight bearish sign, but overall, I think, the midterm time frames are looking pretty strong. I would say at this point, it's looking like, we may start pushing up to some of these key levels, either to this value area low or to the high of the range. I think based on, the 2 hour all the way up through the daily, that's what's looking most probable. However, we are in a ranging environment, and sometimes, ranges just want to continue rotating regardless of what Market Cypher says. Retracements at any point are likely. But I do think that it is more likely that if we are going to retrace from somewhere, it would be after hitting one of these key areas and then getting the retrace. That's where I'm leaning at the moment. All right, I think that is it for this video. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing to the channel, leaving a comment. All that helps to support the channel, and I really appreciate it. And I will see you all in the next video.